Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Wednesday video where I answer your questions. and this week it's going to be pretty interesting. Some pretty cool questions that actually maybe do some pretty deep research. And we'll get right into it. If you have a question, though, that you want to ask me, put it in the comments below and I will answer it next week. So remember that. Okay. So first question comes from Martin Bow, who wrote, what do you usually get from your family for your birthday? Are there any presents comic book related? Usually I don't get much. Actually, my birthdays are like the least celebrated day in my family. It's like usually a day where we kind of don't really do much. We do the cake thing. That's pretty much it. I don't usually get gifts. But there was a couple times where my wife did buy me a gift. And one of the gifts that I got was like a pillow, like a seat, like a little seat. That was a comic book one, related one. So that was kind of nice. And she got me a frame that she thought the comic book would fit into, but totally didn't work. But that was the other comic related thing that she's gotten me in the past. That's pretty much it. My wife's not a really big fan of the comics, so usually I don't get much for my birthday anyways, but usually it's not comic book related. It's usually clothing. So the next question comes from JSS Brooklyn. Regarding first appearances, which Marvel and DC title hold the record for the character first appearances? For the most, probably. So this was a question I had to do some research on, and every time I would search, which which character, which comic has the most first appearances in it. I was thinking like Showcase and books like that. Where they introduce a new character, or some Green Lantern title which has like a million different characters. But a better way that I came up with to find out which books had the most key appearances or keys related to them was to search on Key Collector Comics. And basically what I did was I said, okay, here are the main titles that I can think of. I searched Superman, Wonder Woman for DC, Batman, Detective Comics, Flash, all the major titles. And then I did the same with Marvel, all their major titles, and to see which had the most keys. I figured a percentage of them, or most of them, would be key first appearances. So with that in mind, there is that kind of thing where it's maybe not all of them are first appearances, but this is the number of keys that each title had. So the last on the list was Superman. Superman only had 78 appearances, keys related to it. The next one on the list was Captain America, which had 113. And then another big title was Avengers, which had 183 key appearances. And then the next one after that was Batman, which had 217. And after that was X-Men. I knew X-Men would have a lot, actually. It had 221 keys. Then Detective Comics, which had 223, so 221 for X-Men. So DC Detective Comics actually nudged it out with that extra 2, so 223. And the one that actually had the most, I was really shocked by this, was Spider-Man. Spider-Man had 297 keys. So whether or not that all translates to key first appearances, maybe. I don't know, I'm not sure. There was one title I should have checked that I didn't actually, which is Action Comics, which would have been a sensible one. Probably that has a lot of keys as well. So those are the ones that I searched. So based on that, I would guess Marvel would be the winner with ASM, which is Amazing Spider-Man. So it had the most by far. So yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I tried my best. Really, internet searches really didn't help much. It was the weirdest thing. Matt Likes Comics asks, what was your favorite comic store ever? Well, there's a few that I actually really, really enjoyed. Silver Snail in Toronto. I only visited a couple times. So it's kind of one of those ones when I visited it, I always like, wow, there's so many cool books. So I kind of had this weird nostalgia to it, even though I only visited it maybe 2 times. I can only think of 2 times where I visited it. But it had so many books. It was a very packed store where it was a lot of back issues. And I just thought that was really cool that you could get a really good selection of comic books. And I kind of like that for that reason. So that kind of is the one I'm most nostalgic to. Another one that I really liked that started, the comic shop started when I started collecting on my own in terms of comics, like back in 1992. So this is like my first year of university, and it was when I had that freedom. I could buy whatever I wanted. I didn't have to buy cartoon characters anymore. I could buy, whatever comics I liked. And there was a comic shop that started in 1992, so it started the same time, and it was called Strange Adventure Comics in Halifax, Nova Scotia, because I was going to university at Dalhousie University. And it was just a really great shop. The guy was really nice. He had a lot of back issues. He also had the same interest in Warren Publishing that I did. So we'd kind of exchange ideas. And he actually introduced me to a guy that became a good friend who was also a Warren collector. It was kind of a great shop. So a really nice guy. So that's Strange Adventure Comics in Halifax. And it still exists to this day. So that is something that's pretty impressive. The next question comes from Kay Munin. Since the topic came up in your May 25th stream, have you been noticing more or less people at the comic conventions? What is the first thing you look for when you go to a comic convention? Okay, so a couple things. I have been noticing the numbers of people dwindling, but in a way, I'm kind of a bit biased because I'm used to the conventions in Toronto. Toronto didn't have as many conventions as Ottawa does. It had big ones though. And when you have these big conventions, I mean really big, there were multiple buildings, there were just these massive events. And it was wall-to-wall people. You're just getting pushed all the time. That was Toronto kind of Comic-Cons. So when I came here, it felt like there's a lot less people. Like there's no pushing and shoving. It's not like that at all. But even in the last little while, I've been noticing that things have slowed down in terms of the number of people at the conventions. But generally, they're well attended. The ones here in Ottawa, and the dealers seem to be fairly busy. I mean, there's a lot of actions happening. So I think for the most part, they do okay. It's much smaller a thing where, in a way, the vendors have it a bit easier, because when you go to the big conventions, a lot of the time what's happening is they're paying a massive amount just to be at the convention. So they really are. Their mindset is a little bit different, whereas in these smaller conventions, the fee for them to have a booth and stuff is fairly low. And they're more willing to negotiate on prices. They're more laid back. You can see that they're not so stressed. Oh, how am I going to make this $5,000 or $10,000 back on my booth? Well, they don't have those worries, and it's a little bit more casual, and it's much more fun events. So a little different, but I would say that the market is slower overall, but things are still active. So I hope that answers your question. Next question comes from Alexander Kaminsky, who wrote, I have a few Captain America comics that are like in the old 90s, very special episodes where there was one about drugs and another about asthma monster. An asthma monster. Asthma monster. I was wondering if you had any odd issues like that. So yeah, I do actually. There's actually a title that whenever I think of these kind of weird oddball characters, it's this title that actually comes to mind. And it's the New Guardians. If you look at New Guardians #1, which I actually have, but I couldn't find it, it has a character called Hemoglobin. And Hemoglobin is a vampire with AIDS. he's not only draining your blood, but he's infecting you with AIDS. So just a weird character. So hemoglobin, that's one of the characters. But in New Guardians #2, so that first character is weird, but it gets even weirder. Is a character called Snowflame. And this is the first appearance of Snowflame. The New Guardians #2. And you get jungle snow. But the snow that they're referring to is not like snow as in like the white stuff on the ground that is that falls from the sky. No, they're referring to cocaine. So Snowflame, he's powered up. He's a mutant powered up by the power of cocaine. And cocaine is his god, and he does its will. That's his motto. So just a weird character that he's powered by cocaine. And yeah, so that's an oddball character. Thought it was kind of interesting. But you had some other questions. Second, how do you deal with the drive of getting run fillers versus keys? I'm trying to fill out Cap Volume 1, but I have the urge to fill up on the run filler way more than the keys, as I can look at more cool books. So generally the way I do it is the following. I have like sort of my method, and this is what I did when I collected Wonder Woman. So I wanted to get all of Volume 1 of Wonder Woman, and the way I did it was very simple. I tried to go for the very first and the very last book, and all the keys first. And so I tried to get all those big keys within that title, because I figured those ones are going to be the ones that are going to be going up in the value the most and would become more and more intangible because they would just keep on going up in price. I figured if I lock those ones down first, and usually when my mind, the way it works is I get focused on things. I kind of get really honed in on something, and then I just kind of keep on focusing on it until I get it. So generally that's been kind of my approach. But then after I lock down all those major keys, then I start picking up run fillers. And what also I do is if I see the opportunity to pick up some run fillers, I'll pick them up. So what I was doing with the Wonder Woman was I was buying, there's a lot of auctions where it's just run fillers. Like if you go to Heritage or Comic Link or Comic Connect, or yeah, those three mainly, they have auctions a lot of the time where they're selling just like lots of Wonder Woman or lots of Captain America in your case, where it's just like all the keys have been siphoned out and it's pure run fillers. Well, that was a great way to get a lot of those runs, non-key runs of Wonder Woman. And I basically bought maybe 100 issues that way, where it was just pure lots of like maybe 10 comics, but multiple groups of 10. I think I bought like so many lots of 10 comics, and it was a really nice way to finish the Wonder Woman collection. Actually, I kind of did that before I got some of the earlier ones that were a little harder, but it was just a target of opportunity. So that's not always something you can do, where if you have a bit of a budget or stricter budget than I do. I'm a little bit too loose with my budget. I recommend going for the keys, focusing on one big key, because sometimes what ends up happening is we get stuck with a whole bunch of books that aren't really cool. They're cool if you like the series, but they're not as cool as having that big key that you can say, oh, here's the first appearance of this character, and you can feel kind of like you have this kind of grail book, for a personal grail within your collection. Sometimes it's better to have that. So focus on that first, because you're going to be spending a lot of, if you think about it, if you buy 100 non-keys, maybe you could have afforded one big key instead. So that's generally kind of the philosophy I have, that focus on those big ones first. So next question comes from Jerry Penix. What was Nick Carter's first appearance? What year did it come out? I got number 154, it came out in 1915. Okay, so Nick Carter, for those people who are not familiar with Nick Carter, and I wasn't I've seen his name, I didn't really know the character. Well, Nick Carter is a fictional character who began in a dime novel private detective, okay, comics, which came out in like, the first appearance was in 1886. So he's a very early character. He appeared in a variety of different formats over the last century. Like he was in pulps, he was in some comics as well. But the character was created by Ormond G. Smith, and created also by, first conceived by Ormond, and then he was created by John C. Coryell. And he first appeared in a comic called The New Yorker Weekly, Volume 41, number 46, from September 18th, 1886. So, gotta find that one. Good luck. If you're looking for his first comic book appearance, where he's actually in a comic book, there was a comic book, Shadow Comics number 1 from January of 1940, that he appeared in. So that was his very first comic book appearance. Now, there was a Brazilian comic book that's kind of like a comic strip. It's not quite comic-y booky, if that makes sense. That was from 1937, which was by an artist called Rianto Silva, and he published it in a comic called the Suplemento Journal, Juvenile. So that was really an earlier comic book appearance, but it's not quite comic book. It's like different layout than a standard comic book, and it wasn't an American edition, so we'll go with Shadow Comics number 1 as the first comic book appearance. But if you really want that first actual appearance, you got to go way back to 1886. So, and that is the New York Weekly, Volume 41, number 46, from September 18th, 1886. Wow, that's a mouthful. So yeah, so that's a little bit about Nick Carter. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that was useful for you to do your hunt with. Good luck. Those are all the questions for this week. If you have a question you want answered, well, put it in the comments below and I'll do some research. I'll find out. I mean, I looked up all these first appearances. I looked up this Nick Carter stuff. I'm willing to do a bit of research for you. So use me that way. Have me look up some random stuff. And if you want me to show anything in my collection, I'm always keen to show stuff in my collection. So I do appreciate all the questions that were asked. And thanks for watching. And also, by the way, before I let you guys go, I do have a comic giveaway happening very, very soon. I'm almost at 4,000 subscribers. Only 10 away, I believe, at this point. Once I get to 4,000 subscribers, I'm going to wait 1 week. And then I'm going to have my drawing of who will win the prize pack. And I can show you the prize pack. It's these books. You're gonna win this is the first appearance of Atomic Mouse. We got some sexy Betty and Veronica and a whole bunch more. There's actually a bunch more. So you can win that prize pack by entering my 4,000K subscriber giveaway. The link will be in the description, so you can enter that contest, and hopefully you'll win. Good luck. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Bye for now.